A woman stands in a lavish penthouse, staring at divorce papers on a marble counter. Her hands tremble, not from fear, but from rage. Behind her, a man in an expensive suit reaches out, his face twisted in desperation. "Please," he whispers. "It was just a test." She turns to him, tears streaming down her face, and says the words that will haunt him forever. "You don't test the people you love. You trust them." If you're ready for a story about betrayal, pride, and the devastating cost of playing games with someone's heart, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will change how you think about trust forever. Marcus Chen had everything. At 32 years old, he was the founder and CEO of a tech startup that had just been valued at $40 million. He drove a Tesla Model S, owned a penthouse in the heart of the city, and wore watches that cost more than most people's cars. But none of that mattered as much as the woman sleeping beside him every night. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she was the kind of beautiful that made strangers do double takes on the street. But it wasn't just her looks that had captured Marcus 3 years ago. It was the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she'd spend her Saturdays volunteering at the animal shelter, the way she'd curl up next to him on the couch and read poetry aloud while he pretended to work on his laptop. They'd met at a coffee shop. Marcus had been working on a pitch deck, stressed out his mind, when Sarah sat down at the table next to him. She was a kindergarten teacher, grading papers with colorful markers, and when his coffee spilled across the table, she jumped up to help him, ruining her own papers in the process. She laughed about it, actually laughed. Most people would have been furious, but Sarah had just smiled and said, "I guess the universe wanted us to meet." 6 months later, they were living together. A year after that, Marcus was already thinking about rings. But there was a problem, and it had been growing in Marcus's mind like a cancer for the past 6 months. It started small, a comment from his business partner, Derek, during a night of drinks. "Man, you ever worry she's with you for the money?" Derek had asked, swirling his whiskey. "I mean, she's a teacher. You're about to be worth millions. Just saying, people change when they see that kind of cash." Marcus had laughed it off at first. Sarah wasn't like that. She'd been with him when he was eating ramen for dinner and working 18-hour days in a cramped apartment. She'd supported him through every failure, every setback, every moment of doubt. But Derek's words stuck with him. And then Marcus started noticing things. Small things. The way Sarah's eyes lit up when he mentioned his company's latest funding round. The way she got more interested in accompanying him to investor dinners. The way she casually mentioned just once that the penthouse was beautiful and she could see them raising a family there someday. Were those innocent observations or signs of something darker? Marcus's father had been through 3 divorces. Each time, his wives had taken half of everything he'd built. Marcus had watched his father grow bitter and suspicious, always warning him, "Son, when you have money, you never really know who loves you and who loves what you can give them." The thought became an obsession. Marcus would lie awake at night, watching Sarah sleep, wondering if she'd stay if everything disappeared. If the money vanished, the penthouse was gone, the cars repossessed. Would she still be there? Would she still look at him with those warm brown eyes and tell him she loved him? He had to know. He needed to be sure. Because if he was going to marry this woman, if he was going to build a life with her, he needed to know beyond any shadow of doubt that she loved him, just him, and not what he represented. So, Marcus Chen made the worst decision of his life. He decided to test her. It started with research. Marcus spent weeks planning, making phone calls, setting things up. He told himself he was being smart, being careful. He told himself that if Sarah truly loved him, she'd pass his test easily and they'd laugh about it someday. He told himself he was protecting his future, protecting his heart. He told himself a lot of things. The plan was elaborate. Marcus would stage a complete financial collapse. He'd pretend his company had failed, that he'd lost everything, that they'd have to start over from scratch. He'd see how Sarah reacted, how she treated him when the money was gone, if she stayed, if she loved him through it. He'd reveal the truth and propose. If she left, well, then he'd know who she really was. Marcus set in motion on a Tuesday evening in October. Sarah came home from work, her arms full of her students' artwork. talking excitedly about a little boy who'd finally learned to tie his shoes. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen island, his head in his hands. Papers scattered everywhere. "Hey, babe, you won't believe what happened today." Sarah stopped mid-sentence. "Marcus? What's wrong?" He looked up, and he'd practiced this moment so many times that the anguish on his face came easily. "Sarah, we need to talk. Something's happened." Her face went pale. She dropped the artwork on the counter and rushed to his side. "What? What happened? Are you okay? Is it your mom?" "It's the company," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "We lost everything. The investors pulled out. There was fraud in the accounting department. Money we didn't know was missing. We're bankrupt. Sarah, it's all gone." The color drained from Sarah's face. She gripped the counter for support. "What? How is that? When did this happen?" "I've been trying to fix it for weeks. I didn't want to worry you. But today, it became official. The company's finished. And because of how everything was structured, I'm personally liable for millions. We're going to lose the penthouse, the cars, everything. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry." What happened next, Marcus told himself, would justify everything. Sarah's face cycled through shock, confusion, and disbelief. Then she did something Marcus didn't expect. She pulled him into a tight embrace. "Oh my God, Marcus. Why didn't you tell me? You shouldn't have been dealing with this alone." "I thought I could fix it," he mumbled into her shoulder, and for a moment, he almost felt guilty about the lie. Almost. "It's okay," Sarah whispered, stroking his hair. "It's okay. We'll figure this out. We'll get through this together." Marcus pulled back to look at her face, searching for any sign of disappointment, anger, or regret. "Sarah, you understand what this means, right? We'll have to move. Probably to a small apartment. I'll have to find a regular job. Everything is going to change." Sarah took his face in her hands. "I don't care about the penthouse, Marcus. I don't care about any of it. I care about you. We'll figure it out. People start over all the time." In that moment, Marcus felt a surge of relief and love so powerful it almost made him confess everything. But Derek's voice echoed in his head. "Give it time. The real test comes when reality sets in." So Marcus pushed forward with the lie. Over the next 2 weeks, he staged the collapse of his life. He told Sarah they had to move out of the penthouse by the end of the month. He sold his Tesla, or rather, he told Sarah he'd sold it, when really he'd just moved it to Derek's garage. He started dressing in cheaper clothes from Target instead of his usual designer brands. He became moody, withdrawn, snapping at Sarah over small things. He was testing her, pushing her, waiting for her to break. But Sarah didn't break. Instead, she became his rock. She started picking up extra tutoring jobs in the evenings to bring in more money. She cooked every meal at home instead of ordering takeout. She researched free activities they could do together. When Marcus came home pretending to be exhausted from job interviews that never happened, she'd massage his shoulders and tell him everything would work out. She even found him an apartment. A tiny one-bedroom in a neighborhood 40 minutes from the city center, but it was affordable and clean. "Look," she said, showing him photos on her phone, her eyes bright with determination. "It's got good natural light. We can make it cozy. It'll be like when we first moved in together, remember? We'll make an adventure." Marcus looked at her enthusiasm, at the way she was trying so hard to stay positive, and something twisted in his chest. Was it guilt? Pride? He couldn't tell anymore. The move happened on a Saturday. Sarah's friend showed up to help. Lisa, her best friend since college, and Tom, Lisa's husband. They loaded boxes into a U-Haul truck, and Marcus watched as Sarah said goodbye to the penthouse without a single tear. She just squeezed his hand and said, "Forward, not backward." But Lisa noticed something. As they were carrying a box down the hallway, Marcus heard her whisper to Sarah, "Are you okay? Really okay?" "I'm worried about Marcus," Sarah had whispered back. "He's taking this so hard. I just want him to know that I'm here, you know? That this doesn't change how I feel about him." Marcus felt sick. He told himself it was just the physical exertion of moving. Life in the small apartment was cramped and uncomfortable. Marcus had set it up that way intentionally. He'd rented the place himself, made sure it was small enough to feel suffocating after the spacious penthouse. He wanted to see how Sarah would handle the downgrade. She handled it with grace. She bought secondhand furniture and made the place homey. She hung string lights and put plants on the windowsill. She created a little reading nook in the corner where she'd grade papers while Marcus pretended to job hunt on his laptop. But Marcus was getting restless. It had been 3 weeks, and Sarah hadn't cracked, hadn't complained, hadn't shown even a hint of regret. This was supposed to be over by now. She was supposed to have either proven herself completely or shown her true colors. Instead, she was just being Sarah, loving him, supporting him, acting like nothing had fundamentally changed. It was driving him crazy. So Marcus decided to push harder. He started picking fights, coming home late without explanation, snapping at her when she asked about his day. He stopped helping with chores, leaving everything for Sarah to handle on top of her teaching job and her tutoring gigs. He wanted to see her limit. Everyone had a breaking point, and he needed to find hers. One night, Sarah made his favorite meal, homemade lasagna. She'd spent hours on it, using her limited budget to buy the ingredients. Marcus came home 2 hours late and barely touched it. Is something wrong with it? Sarah asked quietly. It's fine. I'm just not hungry. Marcus, you've barely eaten in days. I'm worried about you. I'm fine, Sarah. Can you just stop hovering? He saw the hurt flash across her face, but she just nodded and started clearing the dishes. As she stood at the sink washing plates, Marcus noticed her hands were shaking. Did you follow up on that lead I sent you? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. The marketing position at Lisa's company? I don't want to work in marketing, Sarah. I know, but it's just temporary. Until you figure out what you want to do next. We need the income. I said I don't want to work in marketing. Marcus shouted and immediately regretted it, but he didn't apologize. This was part of the test. He needed to see how far her patience stretched. Sarah turned off the water and dried her hands slowly. When she turned to face him, her eyes were glassy with tears. What's happening to you, Marcus? This isn't like you. Maybe you never knew the real me, he said coldly. Maybe this is who I am when I don't have money to hide behind. Sarah flinched like he'd slapped her. You don't mean that. Don't I? She stared at him for a long moment, then walked to the bedroom without another word. Marcus heard the door close softly behind her, and he felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Finally, a crack in the facade. But when he went to bed hours later, Sarah was curled up on her side of the mattress, still awake. In the darkness, he heard her whisper, I miss you. I'm right here, Marcus said. No, Sarah replied, her voice breaking. You're not. The next morning, Sarah called in sick to work. Marcus found her sitting at their tiny kitchen table, staring at nothing. There were dark circles under her eyes. I think we should talk, she said quietly. Marcus felt his heart rate spike. This was it. She was going to leave. The test was finally producing results. He sat down across from her, preparing himself for her to confirm his worst fears. I've been thinking, Sarah continued, her fingers wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. And I need to say something. I know you're going through something really difficult right now. I know losing your company was devastating. But Marcus, you're pushing me away. You're angry all the time. You won't let me help you. And I can't keep watching you destroy yourself like this. So you're leaving, Marcus said flatly. There it was. Finally, the truth. Sarah's head snapped up. What? No. God, no. Marcus, I'm saying we need to get you help. I think you're depressed. I think you need to talk to someone. And I'll be right there with you every step of the way, but you have to let me in. You have to stop shutting me out. Marcus stared at her. She wasn't leaving. Even now, after weeks of him being terrible to her, after the money was gone, after everything had changed, she wasn't leaving. She was worried about him. She wanted to help him. Something crumbled inside Marcus's chest. The test had gone too far. He'd proven whatever he'd needed to prove, right? Sarah loved him, truly loved him. He could end this now. He could tell her the truth, and they'd move past it, and everything would go back to normal. But Derek's voice whispered in his mind one more time. The ultimate test is time. Months. A year. That's when the resentment starts. That's when they start looking at other options. And Marcus, in his paranoia and pride, made another terrible decision. He decided to keep going. I don't need a therapist, Sarah. I just need to get back on my feet. Then let me help you do that. Let me be your partner in this. You are helping. You're doing enough. But he said it with such coldness that Sarah pulled back as if burned. She stood up from the table, and Marcus saw something change in her expression. Not anger. Something worse. Resignation. Okay, she said softly. Okay. Over the next month, the distance between them grew. Sarah stopped trying so hard. She still cooked dinner, still went to work, still paid her share of the bills, but the warmth in her eyes was dimming. She stopped suggesting activities they could do together, stopped reaching for his hand when they sat on the couch, stopped saying, I love you every night before bed. Marcus noticed, and a part of him screamed that he should stop this, that he'd gone too far, that he was losing something precious. But another part of him, the part that had been wounded by his father's warnings and Derek's doubts, that part said, see? She's changing. You were right to test her. Better to know now than after the wedding. The breaking point came on a Friday night in late November. Marcus came home to find Sarah sitting on the couch with Lisa. Sarah's eyes were red and swollen. There was a duffel bag by the door. What's going on? Marcus asked, though his stomach already knew. Lisa stood up, her face hard. She's coming to stay with us for a few days. Sarah? Marcus looked at his girlfriend, panic rising in his throat. Sarah stood up slowly. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. I need some space, Marcus. I need to think. Think about what? About us. About whether I can keep doing this. Her voice was barely a whisper. I've tried everything. I've been patient. I've been supportive. I've stood by you through all of this. But you won't let me in. You look at me like I'm a stranger. You treat me like I've done something wrong. And I don't know what I did. I don't know how to fix it. You didn't do anything wrong, Marcus said, and he meant it. God, he meant it. Then why do you hate me? A tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. Why do you look at me like I'm the enemy? I don't hate you. Sarah, I love you. Then show me. Her voice broke completely. Because I can't feel it anymore. And I can't live like this. I can't keep loving someone who won't love me back. Marcus wanted to confess everything right then. The words were on the tip of his tongue. But Lisa was there, watching him with disgust, and the moment felt wrong. He told himself he'd fix it tomorrow. He'd tell Sarah everything tomorrow, when they could talk privately, when he could explain. Take a few days, he said instead. We'll talk when you're ready. Sarah just looked at him with such profound sadness that it made his chest ache. Then she picked up her duffel bag and walked out the door with Lisa. Marcus stood in the empty apartment, surrounded by the life Sarah had tried so hard to build in this cramped space, and felt the first real tendrils of fear wrap around his heart. She'd be back, he told himself. She just needed a few days to cool off. Then he'd tell her the truth, and everything would be fine. But 3 days turned into 5. 5 turned into a week. Sarah wasn't answering his calls. She'd reply to his texts with brief, polite responses. I'm okay. I just need time. Marcus started to panic. This wasn't how the test was supposed to go. On day 9, Derek came over to the apartment. Marcus had finally told him what happened, desperate for advice. Dude, you need to tell the truth, Derek said, looking around the depressing apartment. Like, right now, today, this has gone way too far. I know, Marcus said, running his hands through his hair. I know. I need to do it right. I need to explain it in a way that she'll understand. Understand what? That you lied to her for 2 months? That you put her through hell because you didn't trust her? Marcus, man, I don't think there's a way to make that sound good. You're the one who planted the seed in my head. Marcus snapped. You're the one who said she might be with me for the money. Derek held up his hands. I was drunk and being an idiot. I didn't think you'd take it seriously. And I definitely didn't think you'd go this far. Sarah's a good person, man. Everyone knows that. And you tortured her for no reason. I had a reason. I needed to know. You needed to trust her. That's what you needed to do. The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut because he knew they were true. He'd had Sarah's love, her loyalty, her unwavering support, and he'd thrown it away because he couldn't accept it. He'd needed to prove it, to test it, to pick at it like a scab until it bled. I'm going to fix this, Marcus said. I'm going to tell her everything, and I'm going to make it right. But when he finally got Sarah to agree to meet him at a coffee shop, neutral territory, Marcus realized that some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Sarah looked different, thinner, tired, but there was something else too, a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. They sat across from each other, both nursing cups of coffee. Neither of them was drinking. Sarah, Marcus began, his mouth dry. I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you react. Okay, she said quietly. Marcus took a deep breath. The company didn't fail. I didn't lose everything. I still have my money, the penthouse, all of it. I pretended to lose it all because I needed to know if you'd stay with me without it. I needed to test you. He'd imagined this moment 100 times. He'd imagined anger, maybe yelling, possibly relief once she understood why he'd done it. He'd even imagined her forgiving him, seeing it as a sign of how much he loved her, how serious he was about their future. He hadn't imagined the look on her face. It was blank, completely, utterly blank. Say something, Marcus whispered. Sarah just stared at him for a long moment. Then she started to laugh. It was a terrible sound, hollow and broken. You tested me, she said, and her voice was eerily calm. For 2 months. You looked me in the eye every single day and lied to me. You watched me take on extra jobs to help support us. You let me sell my grandmother's necklace, the only thing I had left of her, to help pay rent. You watched me go without lunch so we could save money. You pushed me away and treated me like garbage. And it was all a test. I needed to know, Marcus said desperately. My father, his divorces, You needed to know what? Whether I loved you. Marcus, I showed you every day that I loved you. I showed you with everything I did, every sacrifice I made, every moment I stood by you. But it wasn't enough. You needed me to prove it. You needed me to earn your trust. Like it was something I had to work for instead of something you should have freely given. I know I messed up. Messed up? Sarah's voice finally rose, sharp and cutting. You didn't mess up. You systematically destroyed our relationship. You manipulated me. You played with my emotions like they were a toy. Do you have any idea what these past 2 months have been like for me? I thought I was losing you. I thought you were falling into depression, and I was terrified I couldn't help you. I blamed myself. I lay awake every night wondering what I'd done wrong, how I could fix us. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and tears were streaming down his face. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I love you. I'll do anything to make this right. Sarah stood up, and Marcus saw that she was crying too, but her tears weren't sad. They were angry, furious. You don't test the people you love, Marcus. You trust them. And if you can't trust them, you let them go. You don't torture them to make yourself feel better. Please, Marcus reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Please, Sarah, don't do this. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't leave. Sarah looked at him, and in her eyes, Marcus saw the death of everything they'd been. I passed your test, Marcus. I stayed. I loved you through all of it. I proved my loyalty beyond any reasonable doubt. But you know what? You failed mine. What? I needed you to trust me, to believe in us, to be a partner, not a puppeteer. And you failed. You failed so completely that I don't even recognize you anymore. She picked up her purse. I'm done. We're done. Sarah, wait. No, the finality in her voice stopped him cold. I've given you 2 months of waiting, 2 months of patience and love and effort. You don't get any more of my time. You don't deserve it. She walked toward the door, and Marcus felt his entire world crumbling. I was going to propose, he shouted, and people in the coffee shop turned to stare. I had a ring. I was going to ask you to marry me. Sarah stopped and turned around one last time. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. Then I'm glad you tested me first, because it saved me from marrying someone who didn't trust me, someone who loved his fear more than he loved me. And then she walked out of the coffee shop and out of Marcus's life. The weeks that followed were the worst of Marcus's life. He moved back into his penthouse, but it felt empty and cold. He tried to throw himself into work, but nothing mattered anymore. He called Sarah every day for 2 weeks until she blocked his number. He showed up at her school once, and she looked at him with such cold fury that he'd left immediately. His friends, the ones who knew what he'd done, were disgusted with him. Derek apologized for planting the seed of doubt, but told Marcus he was done with the friendship. What you did was cruel, man. I can't be around someone who'd do that to a person they supposedly love. Marcus tried to reach out to Sarah's friends to see if they'd intercede on his behalf. Lisa told him in no uncertain terms that if he ever contacted Sarah again, she'd file for a restraining order on Sarah's behalf. You know what the worst part is? Lisa had said, Sarah didn't just love you, she believed in you. She thought you were a good person, and you took that beautiful, rare thing and you broke it. Not for any good reason. Not because you had to, but because you were insecure and selfish. That's unforgivable. Marcus fell into a real depression then, the kind he'd pretended to have during his test. He stopped going to the office, stopped seeing people. He'd spend hours looking through old photos of him and Sarah, torturing himself with memories of her smile, her laugh, the way she'd look at him like he was the most important person in the world. He'd had that. He'd had someone who loved him unconditionally, and he destroyed it because he couldn't believe in it, couldn't trust it, had to pick it apart and examine it and test it until there was nothing left. 3 months after Sarah left, Marcus saw her on the street. She was laughing, walking arm in arm with someone. Not a romantic interest. He could tell, just a friend, but she looked lighter somehow. Happier, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. When she saw Marcus, the smile didn't leave her face, but it changed. Became polite, distant, the way you'd smile at an acquaintance you didn't particularly want to talk to. Hi, Marcus, she said. Hi. His voice came out hoarse. How are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. And he could see it was true. She'd moved on, healed, built a life that didn't include him. I'm glad, he said, and meant it, even though it killed him. You deserve to be happy. Sarah studied him for a moment, and her expression softened just slightly. I hope you find what you're looking for, Marcus. I really do. But I hope even more that you figure out that you can't find it by testing people. Trust isn't something you prove. It's something you give. Then she walked away, and Marcus understood with perfect clarity that she was never coming back, that he'd had something precious, and he'd crushed it in his hands because he couldn't believe it was real. Marcus Chen had everything, and then he threw it all away because he needed to be sure, because trust felt like a risk he wasn't willing to take, because he valued certainty more than love. Now he has his penthouse, his cars, his company, and all the money he could ever need. But he eats dinner alone every night in that big, empty apartment, and he knows exactly what he lost. He knows because he tested it, measured it, proved it beyond doubt, and in proving it, he destroyed it. Because Sarah was right. You don't test the people you love. You trust them. And if you can't do that, then you don't deserve them in the first place. Trust is not a game. It's not a puzzle to solve or a hypothesis to prove. It's a gift freely given. And once you break it, all the money in the world can't buy it back. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the best relationships aren't built on tests and proof. They're built on faith. And sometimes the person we need to trust most is ourselves. Thanks for listening, and remember, love what you have while you have it, because some tests have no second chances.